You're watching the KOAM Morning News on Fox 14. Today, a Minneapolis jury comes to a verdict in the murder trial of Derek Chauvin. We'll have reaction to the trial's outcome and what comes next.
While it's a beautiful April morning, it is also a frigid, cold April morning to the point where we're breaking records left and right. We'll have the latest from the Skywatch Weather Center.
And we're putting the good in your morning with another Wildcat Wednesday, a preview of an upcoming auction and how it benefits area 4-H'ers. The KOAM Morning News on Fox 14 starts now.
We, the jury, in the above entitled matter as to count 1, unintentional second-degree murder while committing a felony, find the defendant guilty.
After 10 hours of deliberation, the jury finds Derek Chauvin guilty on all counts for the murder of George Floyd. Thanks for joining us for the KOAM Morning News on Fox 14. I'm Tanya Bach. The jury reached the verdict yesterday afternoon. Chauvin, the former Minneapolis police officer involved in Floyd's arrest and death, was found guilty of second and third degree murder and second degree manslaughter. The prosecution made the case to jurors that Chauvin putting his knee on Floyd's neck during the arrest constituted conduct that would be outside of what a reasonable police officer would do. Floyd's family called the verdict an important step in the future of the country.
And hopefully our country take a turn in the right direction today. And this day in history proves that it was a turning point.
All of the charges combined carry a maximum sentence of up to 75 years in prison. That sentencing will take place 8 weeks from now. Chauvin's defense attorney, Eric Nelson, is expected to file an appeal. Well, just hours before the verdict was read in the Derek Chauvin trial, a black teenager in Columbus, Ohio was shot and killed by police, responding to a call of a potential stabbing. In a matter of hours, officials released body cam footage of the moments leading up to the shooting. A warning, some may find this video disturbing. Police say 16-year-old Micaiah Bryant was trying to stab 2 people with a knife. The officer fires and Bryant falls to the ground. The teenager was later pronounced dead at the hospital. Police officials say deadly force is warranted to protect others from harm. However, that did not stop protesters from taking to the streets into the night to demand justice for Bryant's life. Officials are calling for calm while the incident is investigated. It's unclear who started the initial fight or who called police. Police cracked down on drug-impaired driving on 420. 420 is the unofficial national holiday for the consumption and celebration of cannabis. That's become more popular in Missouri as medical marijuana dispensaries open in the state. Missouri Highway Patrol increased enforcement, and the Joplin Police Department kept a close eye out for people who may be driving high.
Our number of DUI arrests in the last several years have increased, and so we're seeing that uptick. But so we're just asking the public to just make smart decisions and be safe.
According to the Missouri Coalition for Highway Safety, 94 people were killed and 181 people seriously injured in 2020 in crashes involving drug use. The Republican-led Oklahoma House passes a bill to ban transgender athletes from participating in women's sports. The vote sends the bill to the GOP-controlled Senate, which failed to consider a similar bill earlier this session. Opponents raised concerns the bill could lead to the NCAA pulling some championship games from Oklahoma. The Women's College Softball World Series is held in Oklahoma City, generating more than $20 million annually. Missouri's health director has resigned. Governor Mike Parson announced the departure of Department of Health and Senior Services Director Dr. Randall Williams. Williams was appointed to the job in 2017 by Parson's predecessor, former Governor Eric Greitens. Williams helped lead the state's response to the coronavirus pandemic and is leaving amid the vaccine rollout. Governor Parson says he's naming his Deputy Chief of Staff, Robert Nodal, to be the state's acting health director. Joplin Schools Board of Education meets to discuss many topics for the district. One in particular is a list of capital outlay projects aimed to better the district's infrastructure. A few projects were aimed at improving Jung Field. One is to improve the safety of handrails in the stadium.
It's just going to be a lot better for people that, once you climb stairs or you get tired, or if a person that's older has a little trouble with balance, we want them to be able to have a little bit safer trip up to the top of the stadium, especially. And that's for everybody's safety as well.
They want to add handrails to the top and say these should be throughout the entire stadium. They also want to waterproof Jung Field to avoid any more leaks. For a list of all their plans, you can check out the full story on our website. A Lamar, Missouri high school student is set to compete in a national competition. Jolie Rector placed second at the district level of the Skills USA competition and won state. As part of the graphic design competition, Jolie recreated an existing ad and made a new ad based on a given scenario.
Jolie competed in a competition called Ad Design, and it's a contest designed to test the students' ability in using the programs that she's been learning so far this year.
So far, the competitions have been held virtually using 2 cameras. That trend will continue for nationals. Well, terrifying video surveillance from Mumbai shows the moment a child was pulled from the path of a speeding train. The child was with his mother, who is blind, when he slipped and fell onto the tracks. Railway worker seen sprinting to the scene and pulled the child to safety. Oh my goodness. Mere moments before the train zooms by. Thank goodness he was there. The railway worker has received loads of praise on social media, including from India's Minister of Railways, who called the rescue a, quote, exceptionally courageous act.
That's an understatement.
Wow.
My. Thank goodness for people like that dude right there in the world. My goodness. Wow. Okay, that's one of those where when Tanya was reading the story and I first saw the video, I actually kind of turned away. I was like,
Well, I'm thinking about the mother who can't see where her son is, but I'm sure her other senses are heightened and she can feel the vibrations of the train coming. She knows there's
I can't
danger.
fathom what mom was going through. Can't
Oh
fathom.
man, that
And-
railway worker was there
And that dude
just
right
in
there,
the nick of time.
man, I tell you what.
Man, and he was not wasting time getting there either.
So if that country and the old railway there, they should do a little bit more than make sure he goes viral. You know what I'm saying? Take care of that dude, for sure. All right, Tanya, outside of Television City, 34 degrees. It is a cold, cold start. We got 30 in Miami, 34s in Fort Scott and Nevada. And while we've got a whole bunch of 30s in Carthage, Monette, and Cassville, we're still sitting on the mid to high 20s throughout southeast Kansas. A little bit of cloud cover. It's been spotty at best, and we still have the freeze warnings that do not expire until 9 a.m. And we very well could have the reemergence of those by the time we get to tomorrow as well, as our wind chills. We've seen as low as 23. We're still hanging on at 24 right there for a wind chill in Cassville. Eventually, the cold front's going to move off to the northeast, replaced with a little bit of better, I'm not even going to call it warmth. I'm just going to call it better temperatures from the southwest. We're at 50s around noon, mid-50s later on in the afternoon. Big development is going to be tomorrow morning. We'll pay attention out to the west. That's when the rain begins to fall. Not on us, though, till the afternoon hours. And then as it rolls through Thursday evening into the nighttime, it'll carry us into Friday. And not looking at anything severe, but at least our temperatures do increase. Coming up here, when I see you in a bit, Tanya, we'll talk about those records that we just knocked out of the park here for the last 2 days.
My oh my. Scary. All right, well, up next, I'm still thinking about that railway incident there. More details on the charges filed against the former Quapaw chairman and why a rising number of children are testing positive for COVID-19. You're watching the KOAM Morning News on Fox 14. Today, President Joe Biden will talk about the latest information on the COVID-19 response just days after passing his goal of delivering 200 million COVID-19 vaccine doses in the first 100 days of his presidency. Every day, millions of people are rolling up their sleeves to get vaccinated. But as Britt Conway reports, a lot of people are also rolling back safety measures. And now more and more kids are testing positive for the virus.
More people in the United States are being vaccinated every single day at an accelerated pace.
That's the good news. The bad news:
cases and hospitalizations are increasing in some areas of the country.
But you wouldn't know it based on a recent poll from Axios Ipsos that shows people are getting more lax about public health measures. 53% said they visited family and friends in the last week, 48% went out to eat, and 63% said they wore a mask the entire time they were away from home, the lowest since July. Health experts say they get it.
Just like all of you, I want to get back to doing the things I love.
But we're not there yet. More people need to be vaccinated. Not to mention,
there are no licensed vaccines. There are no approved vaccines for children.
And now the American Academy of Pediatrics says children are making up a growing share of new COVID-19 cases, accounting for nearly 21% from April 8th through 15th, with more than 88,000 cases. Companies have been testing the Pfizer and Moderna vaccines on children, with Pfizer looking to extend its emergency use authorization to those 12 to 15 years old. And there are trials underway for kids younger than that.
Perfect.
But until then,
we need to wear masks. We need to wash our hands. We need to do these things to protect children.
Look at you, brave kid.
I'm Britt Conway reporting.
This is National Volunteer Week, and Mercy Hospital Joplin is taking time to recognize and honor their many volunteers. Mercy Joplin volunteers gave more than 2,500 hours last month. Yesterday's celebration included cake and special thank you cards.
It's almost like a marriage. You know, we come in here and we love to volunteer, we love the people, we love to interact with all people. And when they give us a little thank you like this, it's more than we ever expected.
Mercy volunteers were also encouraged to invite their friends to volunteer at the hospital. We thank each one of them. All right, well, watch rescuers free a terrified dog from the undercarriage of a truck. Yeah, that's what I said. Look at that face. This is not a happy camper. The German Shepherd named Booger climbed underneath the vehicle during a storm. Booger's owners spotted his tail sticking out and he realized he was trapped. 2-year-old pup was so frightened he snapped at rescuers during the operation. Once they sedated and muzzled the dog, they were able to work to free him, not before having to remove the truck's drive shaft and sway bar. Holy cow. Booger's owners say he's doing well and appreciates all involved in the rescue.
I'm taking a good nap after that. Tanya, I want to revert back real fast to it being volunteer week. Now, I want to take this time to give a special thank you to all healthcare volunteers and auxiliary members for everything that you do, no matter the size of the hospital. Just a little background, I know that things at a hospital, they don't run smoothly unless it weren't for the time and dedication and the effort that you care about your communities and that you put in. So from all of us here at KOM and Fox 14, a big thank you as well for that. Let's talk about record cold temperatures that we've had, not only for today, but the past 2 days, because at quarter till midnight on April 20th, we dropped down to 29 degrees at Joplin Regional Airport. That broke the April 20th record from 1955. Now this morning, for April 21, we dropped down to 28 degrees, breaking the previous record set not only in 1966, but 1978. That means by the time we get to this point next year, our records are simply going to read 2021 for the last 2 days. Our temperature outside of Television City sits at 34 right now, same as in Joplin, 32 in Oswego, 30 in Monette. Still got high 29s out throughout southeast Kansas, and don't forget freeze warnings lasting for about the next hour, 45 minutes, as wind chills have dipped as low as the low 20s. We're getting a little bit of a rebound now that the sun is out, and the cold front beginning to make its way toward the northeast, forcing the rain and the snow up toward the Great Lakes. And as the jet stream is still split, as this trough moves east, it'll be replaced by a little southwestern warmth, but also some Gulf moisture. Mid-50s today, still a good 15, 17 degrees below where we'd normally be on April 21. As we work through Wednesday, clearing skies, good amount of sunshine. Thursday, rain develops off to the west. It's going to be here for Thursday afternoon all the way through Thursday evening into Friday. And as a matter of fact, we're going to have additional rainfall that's going to come up from Oklahoma and Arkansas after this band rolls through. So Friday is going to be a little bit wet, especially throughout southwest Missouri as well. At least our temperatures begin to warm up to the point where we see 70s and 80s next week. Be back with the Wildcat Wednesday for you right after this. Welcome back to the KOM Morning News. It is a Wednesday tradition. We call it a Wildcat Wednesday. And this morning we're fortunate enough to be joined by Frances Graves of the K-State Extension District. Frances is the Director and Community Vitality Agent. Frances, number one, thank you for your time. It's great to see you once again, albeit not in studio, but it's wonderful to see you because I know all the hard work that you put into this online, this virtual auction that actually begins this morning. Now, the thing that I'm always amazed about what you're able to do through the Wildcat District is raise these funds. And if you could explain to people the importance of taking part in this benefit.
Absolutely. Thank you, Michael. So this foundation is sort of our nonprofit arm of the Wildcat Research and Extension District, and funds raised this year will help support all of the different programming areas. So any speakers we bring in for our ag producers, an event we might have for our 4-H and general youth population in our 4 counties, community vitality efforts, and family and nutrition health type of topics. These funds will help support those. It's a local source of granting that our agents can go to ask for assistance to bring in a speaker or pay for registration fees, programming materials for people to take a course and not have to pay out-of-pocket costs, as well as some larger projects hopefully down the line.
And for all of you watching at home right now, let's remember this all eventually trickles down to the youth of our 4 states and how it helps them. It's benefitbidding.com/wildcat. Benefitbidding.com/wildcat. Now, Frances, I know it starts today. We're early in the morning right now. What time are you going to open up bids?
Bids open to 8 o'clock.
Perfect. Okay.
Yeah.
So with that being said, now I'm chomping at the bit, wondering what you have available to bid on, and I'm going to start with a 4-state staple, especially when it comes to Southeast Kansas. A fried chicken tour?
That's right. We have gift certificates to all 6 of the fried chicken restaurants in Crawford County. So that's all bundled together as a tour. And if you don't already have a favorite, it's a great way to do some important research.
It's amazing how many vendors and businesses have come together to help the Wildcat District here. And, you know, a lot of people don't realize, we've been doing a staycation series here, and you've got tourism experiences that people can also bid on.
That's been my favorite part from a community vitality perspective, for sure. I love getting to promote some of the cool places that we have in our local area. So we've got, the former Army ammunition plant in Parsons has opened up a private tour to see some of the history of that property and the new things with the rail yard going on, as well as a fishing experience on their pristine lake there that they have with Kansas Department of Wildlife and Parks. We've got some of the breweries have opened up in our area to do a tour and learn how to make beer and do some tasting. We have the Independence Zoo, which is a place I love in our district, and that you can get a backstage pass with the zookeeper to see what goes on at that place. So we've got so many places, so many neat things in Southeast Kansas, and people have donated these experiences. These are definitely some of my favorite items.
Frances, thank you so much for your time. Once again, hey, folks, the online auction, it starts in a matter of hours, if not minutes, depending where you are. All right, we're going to open this up. Benefitbidding.com/Wildcats. Frances Graves, Director of Community and Vitality Agent for the Wildcat District. Frances, thank you so much for your time, and you have a wonderful morning.
Thank you, Michael.
All right, we'll be back with more KOM Morning News right after this.
It's time to honor today's 4-state hero, Chief Petty Officer Robert Casino, a member of the United States Navy from 1961 to 1966. He served during the Cuban Missile Crisis and the Vietnam War. His hometown, Pittsburgh, Kansas. We are proud to salute Robert Casino, our 4-state hero. We have more details on the charges filed by the Koam Nation against former Chairman John Berry and former Secretary Treasurer Tamara Smiley Reeves. KOAM's Chris Warner has been following the story and has more.
On Monday, we brought you the list of charges and allegations made by the Koam Nation against former Chairman John Berry and former Secretary Treasurer Tamara Smiley Reeves. Now, we're taking a closer look at the charges against Mr. Berry and the others alleged to be involved. One of the charges is embezzlement. It alleges Berry took $1.5 million broken up into a series of monthly installments from the Saracen Casino Resort and Q Store and claimed they were success fees as bonus payments. Another of the notable charges is conspiracy. Now, there are 2 counts of conspiracy in the court documents, Count 2 and Count 5. Count 2 alleges that Berry conspired with Merlin Jones, then the CFO of Downstream and Saracen Casinos, and a consultant, Alan Mock, to embezzle funds from the casinos totaling just over $1.3 million. Those funds were issued as checks to John Berry, Jack Brill, Tamara Smiley Reeves, Merlin Jones, and Janet Cummings. The Quapaw Nation alleges that Berry then directed Mock to deposit 3 checks totaling more than $500,000 into a personal bank account owned by Berry. The other conspiracy charge, Count 5, alleges that Berry worked with Merlin Jones, Jack Brill, and Tamara Smiley Reeves to embezzle more than $4 million from Downstream and Saracen Casinos as success fees or bonus payments. Those payments were allegedly made to John Berry, Jack Brill, Tamara Smiley Reeves, Merlin Jones, and Janet Cummings. There's also a civil case filed by the Quapaw Nation against Berry, Smiley Reeves, and 7 others. They include Jack Brill, Janet Cummings, George McWaters, Marilyn Rogers, Sherry Smiley, Tina Smith, and the heirs of Merlin Jones Jr. Jones passed away earlier this month. Those charges include fraud, constructive fraud, conversion, and unjust enrichment. We reached out for an interview with John Berry, and while our request was declined, John Berry's spokesperson told us that Berry and the others named in the indictments have filed a defamation suit against Michael Crump with Innovative Gaming Solutions, which conducted the audit that ultimately led to the charges, as well as current Secretary-Treasurer Guy Barker and current Chairman Joseph Byrd. That suit was filed in February in Cleveland County, Oklahoma District Court. A motion to dismiss filed by the defendants has been scheduled to be heard on April 26th. I'm Chris Warner for KOAM News.
You can find all the court documents and information on our website at KOAMnewsnow.com. Well, another half hour of news and weather is just ahead. Coming up on the KOAM Morning News on Fox 14, smart farming.
Farmers fighting climate change. I'm Natalie Brand in Maryland with how the Biden administration hopes to grow their movement.
And a Missouri police officer hailed as a hero after saving a woman from a burning home. His story is coming up. You're watching the KOAM Morning News on Fox 14. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the KOAM Morning News on Fox 14. It's currently 7:32. Let's take a look at today's top stories. Derek Chauvin faces decades in prison after his conviction on murder and manslaughter charges in the death of George Floyd. The former Minneapolis police officer's bail was revoked immediately after the verdict was read. The 45-year-old is expected to be sentenced in June. Ishara Jones was sworn in as the first black female mayor of St. Louis yesterday after winning the election earlier this month. She's been the city's treasurer since 2013. She's taking the place of outgoing mayor Lydia Crewson, who did not seek re-election. Jones's victory came just 2 weeks after Kim Janey was appointed Boston's first black female mayor. There's now a historic high of 9 black women serving as mayors of the nation's 100 largest cities. The Republican-led Oklahoma House passes a bill to ban transgender athletes from participating in women's sports. The vote sends the bill to the GOP-controlled Senate, which failed to consider a similar bill earlier this session. Opponents raise concerns the bill could lead to the NCAA pulling some championship games from Oklahoma. Women's College Softball World Series is held in Oklahoma City, generating more than $20 million annually. Joplin School Board of Education meets to discuss many topics for the district. One in particular last night is a list of capital outlay projects aimed to better the district's infrastructure. A few projects were aimed at improving Jung Field. One is to improve the safety of handrails in the stadium. For a list of all their plans, you can check out their full story on our website. Well, yesterday was April 20th, or 420, an unofficial counterculture holiday celebrating cannabis. And it's the first one since medical marijuana dispensaries opened in Southwest Missouri. Missouri-made marijuana in Joplin had specials to celebrate the day and gave away free pizza to the first 50 customers. Other dispensaries in the area had specials, meeting the needs of dozens of customers. Also in Joplin, Shango Dispensary opened on 32nd Street.
And then everything just kind of fell into place, right date, right time. So here we are on 420, grand opening.
We'll really inherit the culture, and just 420 is 420. You know, it's time to get medicated.
To crack down on impaired drivers, the Missouri Highway Patrol increased enforcement yesterday, and the Joplin Police Department kept a close eye out for people who may be driving high. Well, this was how springtime looked in Kansas City on Tuesday. A late season winter storm made roads slippery, leading to cautious commutes. The National Weather Service reports it was officially the largest snowfall this late into the spring on record in Kansas City. According to the NWS, more than 3 inches fell at Kansas City International Airport. It's actually more than any daily snow total in the city over the past winter season.
Biggest one that I got, Tanya, from our storm reports was Coffee County, northern portion of our highlighted counties in southeast Kansas, 2.5 inches. And so that would have been part, of what Kansas City has as well. It certainly did temper off as we moved to the south. Our records recently have involved temperatures. We not only broke a record yesterday for April 20th, but we broke another one today that dates back to 1966 and 1978. 2021, coldest on record for both April 20th and April 21. Get up into the mid-50s today, so still chilly, but luckily 60s on the horizon. Rain kicks in tomorrow evening and carries us into Friday morning. More KOAM Morning News on Fox 14 right after this. Our Something to Talk About on the KOAM News Now Instapoll. City of Los Angeles unveiling a guaranteed basic income pilot program. $1,000 a month to families below the poverty line. Asking what you think about guaranteed basic income on Facebook and our morning Instapoll. We'll go to Wynn Castleman. It says someone somewhere has done this already and the results were amazing. Cheryl Kerr says, I think there will always be people that live below the poverty line, even if the government pays them. It's not about people earning the money at a job or government giving them money. It's about, Cheryl says, money management. Miriam Campbell says, if we stop giving our money to dictators across the globe, we can afford it. And Bruce Cooper says more reason people will not want to look/fill jobs. They will make more staying unemployed. As far as our Instapoll goes this morning, what do you think of a universal basic income? 83% of you, an overwhelming 83% of you say, no, that is a bad idea. Now, while I got you here, since we didn't have a chance to run through it really fast, I want to throw a future track up and talk about after we get through today in mid-50s, we can concentrate on rain for tomorrow. The nice thing is with our temperatures, it's going to stay as rain. So that's a look at this Wednesday afternoon. Now, as we transition into Thursday, we'll keep our eyes out to the west, where Gulf moisture replaces the cold front. And that's when we begin to develop rain for the late afternoon, evening hours. And it does carry us all the way into Friday. Now, after we get into Friday, what's going to happen? The original band passes out during the morning hours, but then more rain replaces it, especially for the eastern counties in our viewing area of southwest Missouri and south central Missouri. Now, over to Tanya in Studio K.
Well, a police officer outside St. Louis is being honored for saving a woman from her burning home. She has a prosthetic leg and says she got separated from her husband and son. She says a wall of fire blocked her path, but as Ryan Henson reports, the officer braved those flames to reach her.
Whenever I was arriving or pulling around the corner, I saw the house was fully involved.
January 26th, Officer Tim Shipp heard the call come in for a house fire on the 1800 block of Fox Creek Lane.
Is everybody out? Is everybody out?
He left his side job less than a mile away. He was the first person to arrive on scene. A neighbor told him a woman with disabilities was trapped inside.
I felt like I needed to act. I needed to try to at least get her out.
When he arrived, he called out once, twice, a third time. Finally, on the fourth attempt, he heard her voice.
I was able to follow her voice as she was calling out to me. I got on my hands and knees and crawled through, I believe it was 2 rooms. I wasn't really able to see anything about a foot in front of me. Really heavy, thick, dense smoke.
That woman says if Officer Shipp and that neighbor hadn't run into her now burned down house, she wouldn't be here today. Their bravery saved her life. Once outside, reality hit Officer Shipp. He was reacting on gut instinct since arriving at the scene. He's glad this story has a happy ending.
I don't feel like I did anything out of the ordinary that one of these other officers would have encountered in the same situation, but it does feel good to be recognized.
How brave. Hansen received his department's Medal of Valor for saving the woman. We'll be right back. Joplin's Regal North Star Theater is scheduled to reopen next month. Regal Cinema's parent company, Cineworld, released a schedule for when its theaters will reopen nationwide. The Joplin location is set to open on Friday, May 14th. Guests will be required to wear a mask except to eat or drink. You might have to pay more for Pampers, Loves, Always, and Tampax products this fall. Procter & Gamble says it's raising prices on those items because raw materials are getting more expensive. The company says it will charge retailers like Walmart, Target, and Costco roughly 5 to 9% more. Stores can then decide whether to pass on the cost to consumers. Kimberly Clark says it will increase some of its prices too. So what's cool with the kids these days? Piper Sandler, a financial services company, conducted its semi-annual research project looking at the spending habits of teens around 16 years old. 18% of those surveyed said Chick-fil-A was their favorite restaurant, followed by Starbucks and Chipotle. In regards to clothing brands, Nike ran away with the competition, with 27% of teens saying it's their top brand. And it may surprise folks that instead of trading baseball cards, teens are trading Bitcoin. 9% of teens claim to have traded cryptocurrency, and of those, 81% of them identified as male. And increasing demand, shortening supply, and rising gas prices are all contributing to a higher cost for rental cars. Enzo Marino reports.
Rental car experts say these days cars are more like computers on four wheels.
You need computer chips to control all the major systems in the car, engine management, climate control, entertainment systems.
Autosplash CEO Jonathan Weinberg specializes in getting consumers the best deal on rental cars. He says a shortage of semiconductor computer chips is making it hard for new car manufacturers to produce enough new cars to meet rental car demand. It's driving prices up and making it hard to find a rental.
Now they're facing shortages of these semiconductors, which is causing problems all across the industry, namely that rental cars are sold out all over the place.
Weinberg says he first noticed the problem on President's Day weekend. The worst of it is happening at leisure destinations like Florida, Hawaii, and Las Vegas.
We thought it was a one-time thing that weekend, but we're seeing it over and over again. And in fact, the situation has gotten worse in some places.
A shortage of gasoline is also impacting summer travel plans. This note at a local Chevron says the company is experiencing supply issues in Clark County. Chevron sent us this statement saying, as travel and capacity restrictions have been reduced, the West Coast has seen an increase in fuel demand that may outpace the available supply at times during the month. Weinberg says the same can be said for the rental car industry.
Demand is skyrocketing as more folks get vaccinated and are looking to travel.
We'll be right back with more after this, but first let's take a look at the market prices before the opening bell. Farmers are often the first to feel the ramifications of climate change, and many are starting to fight back from the ground up. Natalie Brand takes us to Maryland, where one farm is already making a difference with climate-smart techniques.
Trey Hill lives the impacts of climate change as the seasons cycle through his Maryland farm.
Our springs are colder and wetter, our summers are hotter and drier. I mean, it's something that affects my livelihood and affects the future of my farm.
But he's learned ways to fight back. The fourth-generation farmer started adopting climate-smart farming techniques 20 years ago. He plants cover crop after harvesting his commercial crop to keep the soil nourished during off-season.
Balanza should be out here as well.
And he avoids tilling or plowing to keep the dirt intact.
That's what soil should look like.
Scientist Ray Weil says this soil is actually capturing greenhouse pollution.
What does that mean to climate change?
Lots and lots of carbon. It's carbon dioxide in the air is no longer in the air. It's now in the soil, and it's going to stay here.
Hill is working with a Seattle startup company to help measure how much he's reducing his carbon footprint.
You have to sequester the carbon prior to marketing your credits. We sequester roughly 1 ton of carbon per acre per year.
Not only a boost to the environment, but his bottom line. He sells his carbon credits on a marketplace where businesses or individuals can support the cause.
So I get to pick my price. It's essentially an auction block. I sold carbon credits, bought this.
It's a win-win the Biden administration hopes to encourage.
It could be that agriculture and forestry could account for as much as 20-25% of our response to climate change.
Robert Bonney, a senior advisor on climate change at the USDA, says the agency is working on developing new tools, maybe even a carbon bank, to bring more participants to the table.
We can get more investment into agriculture and forestry and benefit the climate at the same time.
Well, I think the opportunities are endless.
Ultimately, the goal is to encourage a new crop of farmers like Trey Hill, paving the way in a growing field. Natalie Brandt, CBS News, Rock Hall, Maryland.
The USDA says it's currently soliciting feedback from farmers and holding a series of meetings with people in agriculture and forestry to talk about next steps for building the movement and reducing emissions.
Unfortunately, the biggest challenge for our farmers for the past couple of days were freezing temperatures, to the point, Tanya, where we broke a record on April 20th. Quarter till midnight, we dropped down to 29 degrees at Joplin Regional Airport. Broke a record for April 20th that dates back to 1955. And then earlier this morning, we dropped down to 28 at Joplin Regional. That breaks a record that was set in 1966, tied in 1978. The calendar is going to read 2021 as far as record lows when we get to this point in time next year. Current conditions outside of Television City, 34 degrees is where we stand, 33 in Carthage, still only 26 in the Odyssey and 27 in Parsons. We have seen Miami rebound all the way back to the freezing point after being about in the mid-20s earlier this morning. Cloud cover is going to push off to the east. We're going to stay dry today. The freeze warning remains in effect all the way until 9 a.m. Wind chills dropped as low as the low 20s. Now we're starting to get just a little bit better, but still only feels like 29 in Pittsburgh, 26 in Cassville, and 27 in Neodesha. The trough of the jet stream is now pushing through the Ohio River Valley, forcing a whole bunch of that snow up to the northern portion of the Great Lakes. Split jet stream. What that will allow to happen, anything that was coming off the Pacific right here was really warm yesterday. So that's going to be an increase in our temperatures. Not a huge difference. We're not going to be able to jump back into the 70s, but at least we should be avoiding a record cold here overnight. Get into the mid-50s this afternoon. Plenty of sunshine. Should be a delightful yet cool afternoon for this time of April. Now we're going to get back down around freezing, but I don't think we're going to break any records for April 22nd. Not going to be surprised though if we don't have the reemergence of those freeze warnings, especially on the eastern edge of southwest Missouri. Frost advisories probably throughout southeast Kansas. While Wednesday remains dry, Thursday is going to bring us activity. The cold front is replaced with Gulf moisture, and that will develop through portions of Kansas and Oklahoma, push through Thursday afternoon, and then all through the evening hours into Friday. Now, as we see that remove itself on Friday, we still keep the chances for rain, especially throughout southwest Missouri and south central Missouri on Friday, but at least our temperatures are back into the 60s. We'll be back and wrap up this edition of the KOAM Morning News on Fox 14 right after this.
Welcome back to the KOAM Morning News on Fox 14. Here's what's happening today. Derek Chauvin faces decades in prison after his conviction on murder and manslaughter charges in the death of George Floyd. Former Minneapolis police officer's bail was revoked immediately after the verdict was read. The 45-year-old is expected to be sentenced in June. President Biden was among those weighing in on Chauvin's conviction. The president called it a step forward, but said the country must do more to end systemic racism, especially in law enforcement. The White House is preparing a plan to cut the country's greenhouse gas emissions in half by the year 2030. That's based on a starting point that was set back in 2005. An official announcement could come as soon as today. Let's check in with Michael with a final look at your forecast.
Trying to work our way back into the 50s today after record-setting cold late last night and early this morning. Get up into the mid-50s. We'll have northwest breeze coming in with gusts of 20 miles per hour. Future track keeps us dry for today. Remember, tomorrow is when the cold front is replaced by Gulf moisture. Rain showers begin in the afternoon, not looking at anything severe, but intensifying into Friday morning. Temperatures, though, at least headed toward the 60s as we get to the weekend.
The site where Harriet Tubman and her family lived has been discovered. State and federal officials in Maryland made the announcement Tuesday at the Harriet Tubman Underground Railroad Visitor Center in Church Creek. This comes after an archaeologist found a coin from 1808 along Maryland's eastern shore. Experts say that location is where Tubman, her parents, and siblings lived before she escaped slavery. Pieces of pottery, a button, and other artifacts were found in the area where Tubman's home likely stood. Between 1850 to 1860, Tubman used the Underground Railroad to rescue slaves from the South prior to the Civil War. What a find.
Just an amazing story, and the fact that she grew up in that place. And it was her father's property. Her father was given that. Her father was a slave and was given that by his slave owner.
Wow.
She just didn't grow up there. It's truly tremendous. All right, thank you all for letting us put the good in your morning. We'll be back with more news and weather when we see you at noon.
Have a great morning and an even better day.
Escape the every